Greetings, friends of the apocalypse. Welcome to Podcast at Ground Zero, episode number 9, apocalyptic graphic novels and comic books. This is the Apocalypse Nerd and Adam Scott Glancy coming to you live yet again, and we won't talk about that any further. Again, today we're going to talk about graphic novels, comic books, and we're going to just go to the meat of things and skip over any kind of in the news because we didn't really have anything. Previously, we were ranting a little bit about World War Z. We'll give it its own fair airtime at another time. So, just suffice to say that I thought the movie was okay at best. I did like that they did have some. They tried to do something different, so I give them points for doing something different and not doing the standard cookie-cutter movie.
Even if it was a failure, they tried to do something different.
Something different, and said there was a lot of things that I liked about. There's a lot of breakdown. There's a lot of falls. Like the fall of this city, fall of that city, and we know how much I loved seeing it all go into shit. So, which is good. And again, spoilers. But one thing I do know is when the apocalypse comes, I want a garbage truck. A full honking garbage truck because somebody used that very effectively to clear traffic. So I did enjoy that part very thoroughly. So
as much as we all enjoyed the use of the panel truck in the Zack Snyder remake of Dawn of the Dead, the dump truck, the garbage truck's going to work even better.
Oh, garbage trucks works even better, or even. I think it would be a cool post-apocalyptic vehicle, to digress a little bit, is at airports they have these fire trucks, and they're these big honking 8-wheeled, each wheel is taller than a man kind of truck. I don't know what it's called, I have to research it, but I saw a whole thing on it. It's potent. It's Warwag 1. Just put some guns on it, put some panels on it.
I think they're based off of the 5-ton trucks that the Army has. There's a thing bigger than a deuce. The classic deuce and a half.
Well, maybe we'll talk about how big your deuces are and if things are bigger. But
Thank you, Jared. That's charming. Let's get the poop joke in there as quickly as possible. But I remember seeing these vehicles. They're all over New Orleans because they had such tall clearance they could drive through the flooding back in Katrina. And they've been used for all kinds of heavy lift ever since. But yeah, I know exactly what kind of vehicle you're talking about. It does have that look like it's a base on wheels.
Oh yeah, it is. And just shit, the water cannon alone is a potent weapon. As long as you could get liquid in there, you'd be good to go.
All right, so moving on to our comics. What are we going to begin with? What's our oldest comic?
Yeah, so just comic books. Just like movies, books, games. There's post-apocalyptic graphic novels because again, it's telling a story, except with illustration. So there's a lot of stuff out there. There's been stuff out there for a while. There's a lot of new stuff, a lot of old stuff. We're not going to talk about the most probably well-known because, like Scott had said before, you've probably found it on your own. Was The Walking Dead? Not that we don't like.
We love it.
We love it. Yeah, we love The Walking Dead. I read it at its inception, 2003. So
we've been on board since the beginning, and we're still picking up the issues.
So it's a good book, but it will. When we talk more about more zombie-related apocalypses, which we've been avoiding because it's too popular right now. Let's talk about other apocalypses because guess what? There's more shit out there than just zombies. So, but comic books, graphic novels. One of the first things I want to talk about is something that's a little newer and is still readily available. Was a graphic novel put out by IDW, a pretty well-known independent comic book company right now called Tribes: The Dog Years. It is available in print and is also available in digital. I actually did pick up a digital copy for my iPad, and oof, it looks fantastic. It looks really good. The basic premise of the story is there is a disease virus out there, and spoiler alert, it was man-made. And they explain why it was man-made and what happened. But nobody lives past the age of about 18 to 20. I can't remember exactly what it was. So the people are a bit primitive because they really don't have time to redevelop society because, you know, they're babies, they start growing up, they're teenagers, they're dead. You know, so it's like you don't really have time to reestablish society, which keep things, you know, kind of like a tech level 1 type of situation. But of course, they have the stereotypical, yes, they do encounter an old person, they've never seen one before, and he kind of explains what's happening, what's going on. But it's a pretty good story, it's pretty well developed, a lot of good action. It definitely left it open for part 2. I don't know when the hell part 2 is going to come out, because this one originally came out, they keep on talking about it. This came out in, what is the year, if I can't seem to find the copyright, but it is still, again, it came out the last, like, probably 2010, so it's within the last couple of years, still readily available for a new post-apocalyptic comic. It's pretty good. It's a big graphic novel. It wasn't serialized or anything. It's like here's the story. So it's definitely worth a look. I did thoroughly enjoy it myself. Now, some other post-apocalyptic that we do have, and I'll talk about them a little bit briefly, is this is more stuff that influenced my post-apocalyptic gaming and passion for the apocalypse when I was growing up, was 2000 AD from England. I'm sure people are familiar with 2000 AD, with Judge Dredd.
They better be.
Yeah, they better be. You know, if you call yourself a geek, you don't know who Judge Dredd is. You know, turn your card in right now, sir. You know. It was apocalyptic. It was dystopian. I liked it because it was very high tech, but it still had primitive in it. I love the high tech because it had all the, you know, bubble cars and laser and Mark V blasters. It had all that aspect that you'd find like in Gamma World, and it did actually have some stories that actually were very apocalyptic, like the Cursed Earth saga, which was basically a Damnation Alley.
With no credit to Rogers Elastic, just
no credit.
Numbers filed right off. I mean, they even cross the Cursed Earth in their big war wags to deliver the cure to a plague.
Yes.
Just like, except it's from the east to the west in Damnation Alley, and it's they went to Boston at Damnation Alley, and went to California in the Cursed Earth.
Yeah, they went from Mega City 1 to Mega City 3, I believe, because I think Texas was 2. But it's a pretty good series, a lot of good characters. You know, you had the Angel Gang with Mean Machine. It's pretty good. There's like I said before, there was a pretty cool concept in here, which I think would make a great Gamma World scenario. Just in brief, there's a story arc called Chapter 7, Night of the Vampire. It's these vampires were haunting these villages, sucking people's blood, and they find out that it's actually robots taking people's blood. Now, the idea of the robots and why they did it and what they were doing was pretty cool, and again, I think it would make a pretty good Gamma World scenario from that book. So, again, Cursed Earth is pretty good. It's very focused on the apocalypse. But another aspect of 2000 AD, which I enjoyed thoroughly myself, is Strontium Dog. Strontium Dog was a bounty hunter. It was post-apocalyptic. There was still some society. They were mutants. They couldn't get jobs, so they became bounty hunters. So there's a mix of post-apocalyptic, you know, on the Earth, a lot of space travel, a lot of, you know, and but it was a good mix. Again, high-tech weapons, post-apocalyptic, mutants. So I did kind of like a lot of how that worked. They have collected
Plus, there were, you know, 2000 AD was the home for a number of other post-apocalyptic stories.
Yes.
That turned up because it was serialized stories. Like, what was it called? Shock, which kind of like was made into shoot. What was the movie with the killer robot?
Hardware.
You know, there was a short comic called Shock Trooper or Shock, where the guy brings home the bits of the robot to use for his metalworking sculpture, you know, in Mega City 1 out of the wasteland, and then it reassembles itself. That I think I remember being around before. As a precursor, and even that was based off of. I think even that was based on Karen Black being chased around by the Zuni fetish doll in Trilogy of Terror, except instead of a little wooden doll, it was a killer robot.
Yeah, and the wibbly wobbly lock, but
No, let's not
go there.
Let's not go there. Holy cow, that's some scary stuff.
It is, but 2080 is very good for a lot of that stuff. Again, I like Strontium Dog. It's available. They put out a collection of four big graphic novels collections. I have all four of them. You know, they make good doorstops too. So it is out there. It is readily available. So now some of the other, go ahead.
Yeah, I was saying, you stack them up, you can stop bullets. They can be part of your defense plan for the apocalypse.
Yeah, so when you're done reading them, you know, just stuff them in your sweater, you know, so you know, make armor out of it. But there's some other ones, more mid '80s ones. I don't have these, so we're gonna let Scott. Yeah, you show those to us. The couple of gems you got there. Well,
I have the complete series of American Flag. Now, American Flag was created by Howard Chaykin for First Comics back in the 80s, and these were beautifully illustrated, and they were sort of set in a post-apocalyptic setting. In that 1996 comic was written in '83. 1996 was the year of the domino, the year everything went to hell. The East Coast meltdown, massive crop failures. The USSR collapses in an Islamic insurrection. 5 years too late. Food riots shake Western Europe. Asia assaulted by the Black Plague. International banking system collapses. Iran-Israel nuclear exchange. Germany reunites, nukes London. California sinks, plague spreads, and anyone who's everyone in banking or government hops the space shuttle and takes off for Gagaringrad, like as in the first man in space, the Soviet moon base and the American Mars base, and all of the rich people evacuate the world while it's going to hell. And now it's like the 2030s, something like that. And
sounds like Elysium, the movie that's coming out a little bit.
Now the apocalypse has happened, and now coming back from there, where they sat out the apocalypse in style, the powers that be are coming back to try and sort of gain control of the Earth through something called the Plex, and it's like a franchise. It's as an evil empire, it's like a franchise trying to regain control of the Americas, Canada, what used to be the Soviet Union. And meanwhile, the world is run by, the third world powers we left behind, like Brazil and sub-Saharan Africa. Those are the superpowers now. It had a lot of, it had some post-apocalypse, but mostly it was about dystopia, and it was making fun of American consumerism and American, obsession with entertainment. So it's not quite apocalyptic enough, but I think Timothy Truman's Scout definitely fits the bill for thoroughly apocalyptic. There were two series, Scout and Scout War Shaman. And many of them are collected. Did you say, Jared, that these have been collected into big graphic novels now?
Yeah, there was, I think originally a number of years ago, they were actually collected into two books, 8 issues each. They actually were redone, or they called remastered, by Dynamite Comics, and they're readily available on their website. I saw, so they were kind of the art was recolored, reconstituted, so it has a nice new fresh look to it. So they are collected in 2 volumes and are available now.
The originally the idea was that that these were put out by something called Eclipse Comics, and they put out a few other sort of apocalyptic things. They put out Winter World, and I want to say that they put out another Timothy Truman title that was I'll never remember now. It was the one set in the multi-dimensional city where reality changed from block to block, where in one block guns work and another block guns don't. And so being a private investigator in this sort of sci-fi fantasy multi-dimensional city meant knowing your neighborhoods. But anyway, Scout was essentially set in a America where we've become the third world. Our industry has collapsed. All our topsoil is ruined. They were back in the Dust Bowl. It was Timothy Truman taking a crack at Reagan's America. That, somehow America can't be successful for very long without using up all its resources, and California will fall into the sea, and it'll turn into this banana republic essentially, and that's the setting for the most part. As the story goes on longer and longer, it becomes more and more, frankly, apocalyptic. Rather than putting things back together again, which is sort of what was happening in American Flag, it's just this slow spiral of destruction in Scout. The main character is Emmanuel Santana, who is a deserter from the U.S. Army, who is an Apache who has sort of reverted to his original Apache mysticism. And he sees the world in terms of Apache myths and monsters, which for him stand in as the corrupt government of the United States. Oh, you're muted.
Hey, when I unmute my microphone here, was he a was he a white Comanche warrior like in the Gene Roddenberry series in the 1970s, which we talked about a few episodes ago?
No, he was not like Ted Cassidy. He was flat out Apache, and Tim Truman had a huge heart-on for Native American stories. In fact, he wrote a graphic novel about Tecumseh, who was one of the Indians who fought one of the last semi-successful wars against America in like the 1820s. So so this is sort of a continuation of that, but it's set in like 1999 when it first starts off, and the world it posits clearly didn't come to pass because America didn't fall into the crapper, and the Soviet Union didn't take over the rest of the world, because the rest of the world in this story is Mexico is like Cuba. It's a communist state right on our border, and Alaska is divided between Canada and Russia in a Lend-Lease program so that they get to use all the oil in Alaska because America can't pay its bills anymore, and it's things like that. The Soviet Union does not fare so hot after 1991. But
well, I don't know what world you're living in, but everything you've described sounds like my day-to-day life. So,
but it was extremely well illustrated, but it became it was from the age of the real burst into micro publishers and independent publishers in comics in the mid to late 80s.
Oh yeah.
But it was it was a good story. It was worth a read for me. And one of my favorite things about it, both American Flag and Scout had this thing where, as the government went broke, always other groups showed up to buy off government surplus. So in Scout, you had at some point the Salvation Army is an actual military force that stomps around America with government surplus tanks that the government can't afford anymore, crushing the unbelievers and acting as a sort of an independent militia that the government then subcontracts to go do its dirty work. And so there's a number of others. They have one for the Klan, but I don't remember exactly what the reworked American Klan was. The one thing I do remember from let's see, what was it called? The Knights of America is what the Klan is reworked as. From American Flag, what I always remember was there were all these political clubs that reminded me of the poly clubs from Gamma World that are all over the place, like the Goddard Democrats, which is the American Nazi Party, and the American Survivalist Labor Committee, and the Legion. I don't know what the hell they are, but they have the word scab written on all their uniforms. The Judeo-Christian Moralists militia. There's all these different political clubs that fight all the time, and the Plex actually gives them credit cards and cameras so they can buy weapons and film the firefights. And it's the most popular show on the air, Friday Night Firefight Live, where the only rules are you can't shoot up a commercial district where people are shopping, and you can't use airplanes. Other than that, no chemical weapons, no airplanes. Other than that, there's sections of Chicago where the story set where it's just a free fire zone, which is part of everyone's nightly entertainment on the cable TV. And that was one of the things that really got me in both of these is this idea of militias that are just running amok over the country. But
wait, that sounds like winning TV. I don't know why the networks aren't really doing this right now, because I think with ratings dropping, they need to pick this up.
It's reality TV. It writes itself. No need for a script doctor. All you do is get out there with your wobbly cam and shoot each other.
Oh, exactly. It's like, that would be more entertaining, because it's like I see, like, guilty pleasure. We watched that Breaking Amish show, and Breaking Amish. It's that these clowns who were Amish and they've left the community, and it follows their shenanigans. It's so contrived. It's like these people left a long time ago. It's so bad, but it's like watching a fucking train wreck. You can't keep your eyes off it. God. But but again, it would be more a show like this with live fart would be more entertaining, because it's like, well, you know what? It really is off the cuff. Whereas this, it's so like plotted and planned and stuff like that. It's like, okay, let's go shoot over there. That's it. Not much not more than that.
Friday Night Firefight Live, and the other show I always remember was Bob Violence, which was Bob Violence.
Violence.
Bob Violence was was an animated TV show. It was like Itchy and Scratchy with assault rifles, that was one of their popular shows in the world of American flag.
Bob Violence.
Bob Violence.
Yeah, I love it. I love it.
But all that was more dystopia than it was good, solid apocalypse. There are areas of the world that were still wild and ungoverned, but for the most part, these were more dystopic than purely apocalyptic. And I want to say in my defense that most of the comics that Jared's about to roll out now, I own as well, but and highly treasure. But let's move on to the next entry.
Well, you didn't need to justify it. It's just that I just had them more readily available. But again, like we said, we are going to cross the border between dystopia and apocalyptic a lot, because they kind of go hand in hand. Because a lot of times, the dystopia forms after the apocalypse.
Yeah. Just take a look at Children of Men.
Children of Men, or let's not take a look at the Hunger Games.
Yeah, let's try not to. If we can possibly help it.
Yeah, like I said, that's one of the very few movies that I've ever walked out of.
All right, moving along to
and
Don Lomax. Should we move on to Don?
And also, somebody's defense of the movie was, oh well, you know what? You need to read the book, because then it's a lot better and it makes more sense. And I'm like, well, you know what? If I have to read the book to appreciate the movie, then the movie didn't do its job.
Yeah, that's just a fail.
That's a fail.
Yeah.
So next thing we'll move on to is something from, if we're familiar with Von Bode. Von Bode of Cheech Wizard fame. And for those of you who don't know who Cheech Wizard is, he's this little wizard who's red, I believe, and he has this hat that covers his whole body except for, it's like his body's covered except for his penis down.
And his feet. And apparently this was all over. This is a very popular underground sort of psychedelic
in the
comic.
70s.
Yeah.
60s, 70s. He's got it's his yellow and red, and there's a lot of like weird wizard women, and there's a lot of boobs, and it's very Von Bode. But he did this thing called Cobalt 60.
Hold that up to the nice folks.
Oh, Cobalt 60. There you go. This was a later reissue of that, because I think it was thanks to probably his son Mark Bode and Larry Todd, because Mark Bode still does artwork in his father's style and still puts a lot of his father's stuff out there. They put a collection. I mean, I think I originally saw this serialized probably in Epic or Heavy Metal magazine, and they kind of put it all together. The simple story is Cobalt 60 is the Robin Hood hero of the mutants because there's the Knights of Genetic Purity type folks who are trying to squash all the mutants in this evil post-apocalyptic world, and he's fighting them. It's the whole church suppression, genetic purity kind of thing that's going on there in this story. That's what it basically boils down to. But it's not a bad read if you get your hands on it. It's apocalyptic, a lot of mutants and firefights and crazy creatures. It's not bad. Some some apocalyptic looking scenery. So
it's certainly more lighthearted than the two comics I mentioned, which were drawn very photorealistically.
Oh yeah. I mean, here's just to show a quick little sample of how the artwork works. Again, very lighthearted. But again, it's good stuff, very classic. Von Bode. It's not poorly done. It's just done differently. It's done more comic-y.
Yeah.
So it's
very cartoonish.
Yeah, very cartoonish. But again, it's not bad. It's pretty good. It's worth a read. I think it's probably still readily available if you could get your hands on it. So Von Bode tapped into that. Also, everybody's friend Richard Corbin, who's known for a lot of his fantasy work for the last, 30, 40 years.
Yeah.
Does a lot of high fantasy. He did a couple of post-apocalyptic books. He didn't necessarily do the writing. He did the illustrations on them and worked on the stories a little bit. He did one thing which we've talked about before, is he did an adaptation of A Boy and His Dog called Vic in Blood, The Chronicles of a Boy and His Dog, which I got right here, which A Boy and His Dog is done by a story by Harlan Ellison. Now, the book, the graphic novel, I believe follows the story a little bit better than the Don Johnson movie.
Well, the Don Johnson movie could not do the effects that were required for that robot, for one thing.
Yeah.
And they couldn't show the screamer.
Nope.
They show the glow from the screamer, which is kind of nice, but they never could. They didn't have the effects to do that. But and they also couldn't make the characters as young as they are in the book.
Yeah, because they're kids, a lot of them.
Yeah, really underaged.
Very underaged, and it's not. And the screamers. What I always remember about the screamers was from the story was I wonder if the screamers from the story inspired the screamers, which were an encounter in the Legion of Gold Gamma World module, GW1. There's a section where you find these 10 shelters, and there's these screamers. They're these glowing, melting, nasty creatures. So I'm wondering if they took that from the Harlan Ellison story, Boy and His Dog.
Very radioactive undead. And frankly, probably recycled for the glowing ghouls, the radiation leaking ghouls from Fallout as well.
Yeah, exactly. So Corbin did the illustration on that. It's a very nice piece. I believe it's still readily available. Again, a lot of times you can find the stuff on Amazon. Sometimes you can find better deals. You can't. The first Corbin one that I found was as a child, as I saw it actually in the adverts of Heavy Metal magazine, which I was reading when I was.
I saw it in 1984. Do you remember 1984? It was another magazine like that. It was another magazine like Heavy Metal or Epic. I don't remember who put it out, but that's the first time I saw Mutant World, which is the next one you bring up.
1984. I can't remember who put it out because Epic was put out by
one of the big comic companies.
Yeah, Marvel.
Marvel.
Yeah. Marvel put out Epic. Heavy Metal was itself, and 1984 came out. And I don't remember who did that one, but I see him in the back of Heavy Metals. So I was reading Heavy Metals when I was like 15.
Not supposed to.
Not supposed. Well,
when you were not supposed to be reading them.
Yeah, I was 15, 14, whatever. But Mutant World, I saw it, and all I saw was this giant dog and chicks with big boobs and bare-chested mutant guys. So I'm like, hey, that looks good. Let me go order that. So I got Mutant World. Not bad. It's a lot of the world is just devastated in this, but there's definitely a lot of mutants, sparsity, pretty good scenes, there's a plot, there's a whole story to it. You have the mutants, you have the people above ground. There are some below ground folks, people in bunkers. So it covers the whole gambit of apocalyptic that you would find from the people in the installations to people running on the outside.
It is stunningly, horribly ruthless.
Yeah. Oh
I
yeah.
mean, our main character in the story is a giant idiot man-child who's completely trusting and stupid and is constantly taken advantage of by everybody he meets in the worst ways possible.
Yeah, I think they call him like Demento or something like that. Demento. I can't quite remember, but no, there's some good stuff in it. There's some good characters, some interesting stuff. Yeah, some of the characters are ruthless and brutal. It's not bad. It's pretty good. I don't know if Mutant World's still available. You might be able to get your hands on it. I think more readily available is Son of Mutant World, which I don't have, which was the follow-up to this, which I heard is very good.
Wow, I've never heard of that, Mr. Wallace. Tell us more.
I don't know much about it because I've never seen it. I don't have a copy of it. It was called Son of Mutant World. I think it is a continuation of the story of some of the main at least one of the main characters. It was like maybe 3-4 issues. I'm not 100% because I don't have it. I've never seen it.
That's one worth chasing down.
Yeah, I gotta chase that one down because Mutant World is pretty good. And I even had, besides having the graphic novel available, there was a poster of the cover that was available that I had and had hanging on my wall when I was in high school. Of this big giant poster of this big nasty dog mutant creature was hanging on my wall. So again, I love the apocalypse. So,
so what's next?
What's next? Some other good stuff. One of my favorites is an artist, author, Pepe. I believe it's Morano is his name. He is from South America. I believe he's probably I want
to say he's Brazilian. I don't know why.
I thought he was Argentinian.
You might be right.
No. If he was listening to us, he would stab us both in the face because we're both wrong. He's from Valencia, Spain. Okay.
Oh,
so yeah.
I see.
Yeah. He was best known. He got to be known for, in the early '90s. There was a Batman comic called Batman Digital Justice. It was the first totally computerized graphic novel that came out there for superheroes, and he was very well known for that. But I remember him originally from Generation Zero, which was serialized in Epic magazine. I think the first issue was like April of '83 was the first issue, which was actually the first issue I ever bought of Epic magazine, and it happened to have that story. It's a good story. It's set after the apocalypse. It starts off in Iceland. You get these 3 characters, these kids. There's like a survived city, a civilization in Iceland in this big bunker complex, giant bunker complex. And there's a little bit of high technology. Like
they're also all refugees. All the characters are like, one's an American, one's a Russian, one's a European, and they've all gathered there as refugees from a pretty standard Soviet-American doomsday scenario.
Yeah, nothing different. The beginning of the book tells about the whole story. They're all hanging out there, so it works. So it's a pretty good story. And they're looking for his father because there was a message that was received because he went out exploring to try to find some stuff in the world. And basically, it's them chasing down his father. And there is a little bit of high technology.
But they are trying to find a place to relocate the colony to because they're running out of resources.
Because apparently his father was looking for that as well, and supposedly they need to find his father because he sent a message, and they're like, okay, he must have found something. We got to find him now. So they're searching for him. They have like this kind of a high-tech kind of aircraft, not quite, it's not an airplane. It's not like super high-tech. This guy does have like a cybernetic arm. So there's a little bit of high tech, but not too much. They go all throughout the world. They go to the Middle East. You get to see what the Middle East is like, the Atlantic Ocean. They find some, all kinds of different characters, different people. So, but I don't want to
they hit New York and find how the mutants in New York. But you got to tell them about the oil tankers in the Red Sea.
Oh yeah, that's the Middle East. Yeah, it's they come across this organization of these quasi-military Nazi, whatever organization you want to call them, because everybody's a Nazi, and they have established bases around tankers, because apparently a lot of the oceans have dried out, especially like I think it was like the was it the Persian, not the Persian Gulf, was it the Persian
The
Gulf?
Red Sea. I think it's the Red Sea.
It was the Red Sea Desert now. Yep. So I guess it got blocked off, so it dried out. So there's all these tankers there. They're on their side. So they build their bases around the tankers to use the oil to make the gasoline to fuel all their expeditions, all their vehicles, their jets, things like that. So they're expanding, trying to take over. So they go to Cairo. It's pretty interesting. They go to South America. They encounter other people. Pretty good story. Again, I'm not going to reveal too much of it. You could probably still get your hands on a copy of it, but I think eventually Pepe is supposed to actually put this out again, because he runs a website, independent comic website, where he's actually put some of his stuff available, because he's redone. He's going to be redoing Generation Zero. He's already done his other book called Rebel, which he put out. Rebel's a little more dystopian. But it's definitely apocalyptic as well. He's already kind of redone this, where he's like, I have it. He's redone the art, touched it up a little bit. He's changed some of the dialogue. He's taken one of these angles of what I didn't do it the way I wanted to kind of approaches. And then I've actually emailed him and said, it was great the way it was. I mean, I appreciate you wanting to redo your work, but I thought it was a classic as is. So.
I got to disagree with you slightly on that. I thought that of the two, between Rebel and Generation Zero is the better story. And Archie Goodwin, I guess, was the co-writer.
Yes.
On Generation Zero, and his influence shows. It's a much more nuanced story with different, much more interesting levels to it. Rebel comes off in some ways as being far more two-dimensional.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, like, he's changed it a little bit. Again, for the better, for the worse. It didn't really change too much, but it's interesting. And he's supposed to be redoing Generation Zero, and apparently that's not going to change at all, because it was Archie Goodwin's story. So he's not going to be changing. He's not going to be changing any of the dialogue. Whereas Rebel was completely him. Rebel takes place in New York City. There's gangs that run around in the abandoned city. There's an organization of Nazi military types who try to control everything.
Well, it's the sanitation police.
That's right, the sanitation police.
The stormtroopers in this story are the sanitation police, who are removing the public garbage, the human waste from society, by shooting everybody who apparently has a tattoo or DuckTales. I mean, it's just it's pretty. Anyone who's dressed like one of the sharks and the Jets gets taken off and shot, except for the creepy gay Nazi skinheads.
Yeah.
Who are
the leader of the skinheads looks like something out of I don't know, some Rocky Horror, or what is that fucking movie?
You tell me.
Phantom of the. Oh no, it was like 70.
Phantom of the Paradise.
Yes. Thank you.
Oh my God. Oh, that's some ancient history, sir. All right, but yeah. I love that they get down, and the leader of the Nazi skinheads is some twink. I mean, he's just this little slip of a gay guy who minces around all the time, and I'm like, why are they listening to him again? He doesn't seem to have anything in common with them. But
because he has this unintelligent brute as his bodyguard that's bigger, twice as big as anybody.
Oh yeah. I remember. I forgot he had the subhuman assistant, and the head creepy sanitation police Nazi guy is stooping him. So we have the extra benefit of the bad guys not only being Nazis but being gay Nazis. So.
Oh, and I believe. Pinball, that's his bodyguard there. Pinball.
Yeah, the orc.
The big nasty teeth. Yeah.
The orc that just blew in from Isengard. you know, to show up in the story.
Oh,
Somebody,
and here's what we're talking about. His name is Doll, by the way, Doll. Doll.
I'm not opposed to having gay guys be post-apocalyptic warlords. I mean, we all respect Wes, okay?
Well, who doesn't?
You know, but that's because, you know, he could actually badass shit and smash things and leap over barbed wire fences in a single bound, you know, and shoot guys with crossbows. This Doll character just flops around his apartment being sarcastic.
Yeah.
You know, that's apparently his only superpower is to be wry and condescending. Okay, whatever.
But again, it's pretty. I mean, it's not terrible. Again, it's got a lot of cool things. Like they have like cool vehicles.
Oh, it's
they have like armor.
Beautifully illustrated. Like
Beautifully illustrated. A lot of cool concepts. Again, these are things I was reading back in the day when I was playing post-apocalyptic games. So again, a lot of this stuff was very influential in my ideas and visions of the world and things I wanted to see and do in doing them. So Pepe Moreno stuff, again, it's pretty good. Some of it's readily available, some will be more readily available.
Did Moreno talk at all about the problem that in Rebel at some point they blow up the World Trade Center?
No.
I would have thought that'd be one of those things just like, whoops, is that allowed? Are we allowed to have a comic that happens in, or are we like, you know, granted the world...
Well, he wrote it originally back in like '85, so, you know, it's...
Yeah, and frankly, doesn't blow up the World Trade Center until the 2020s or something, right?
Yeah.
Isn't it supposed to be the near future? You know, as far as he's concerned, the World Trade Center made it an extra 20 years.
Yeah. 1986.
Yeah,
is when he wrote that, and yeah, the World Trade Center. It's kind of one of the towers is half down, so I mean it's kind of dilapidated, kind of falling apart. There's a good. I'm trying to find. There's a good shot here of what it looks like. I'm trying to find it. If you give me just a second here, I think I can. Yeah, he shows like one of the half the tower down.
Yeah.
Because that's where the sanitation police are housed, and what's left of the other building of the World Trade Center. So, because it's like their castle. It's up high. They could look down on the peasants and kill them all. Yeah. So,
for reasons that even now seem kind of vague, but all right, it doesn't matter. It was beautiful and it looked good and things exploded, so it had all that going for it.
Hey, well, you don't need much more than that sometimes. So those are some really good ones there. We got a couple more titles. I got two quick titles I'm going to talk about there. We're going to hit the two bigger ones I want to talk about. The Last Generation and Twilight X. A couple of quick ones that I have here. I don't know how these might be hard to track down. New England Comics, who did the Tick comic book still does, I think, the Tick comic book, put out these two comics. It was only 2 issues. It was called Nuclear War. Pretty self-explanatory title. Nuclear War. What more do you what can I expect in this? Teddy bears and rainbows and
ponies,
unicorns. No, the story starts off with this whole one of these situations where America collapses. The Chinese are in league with the Russians, and they trick everybody, and they're able to nuke the country and bring it down and kind of take over. And there's this whole traitors of America who work for the occupying forces and try to keep the people under control, use the resources.
I think they're called Democrats.
Yeah.
How political was it? Was it really like, if you watch PBS, you're gonna side with the Soviet oppressors, or how politicized was it?
Yeah, it was not too bad, but it's a really simple comic. It wasn't anything super fantastic. It was only 2 issues, but it talks about there's a lot of insurgency, a lot of forces fighting against the evil. You could probably still get them on their website. Again, it's a quick. It got a little better in the second one because it showed more post-apocalyptic kind of stuff. Again, quick.
So it sounds very Red Dawn.
Yeah, it's very Red Dawn-ish. Again, it's nothing to write home about. But again, it's there. I have it. I had to get it because it was a post-nuke. One comic book put out by, again, in the '80s by a lot of the independent comic companies like you talked about. Apple Comics, it was called, put out a book from Don Lomax called Survive. I got Scott a copy of this one. I really, really like
Yeah.
Survive. It's something that I originally found. It was serialized in gun magazines, like like you'd find like a Guns and Ammo type of thing back in this is like 82, 83 maybe. And I found one like serialized part of it, and we got the magazine just for that. And eventually, years later, I tracked down there was like apparently a whole comic put out for it, and it basically takes place right before the nukes fly. It's his family. It centers around this family, a husband, a wife, and their 2 kids, about how they're trying to survive the apocalypse. It's pretty gritty. It gets pretty hardcore. It gets very
it's all cannibalism and poop. I mean,
yeah.
it gets pretty nasty pretty quick. And the guys who are being nasty, okay, sure, the Russians are lobbing nukes over, but all the threat comes from your fellow Americans.
Oh yeah. It's brutal. It gets really down and dirty. This the shit they talk about, they do. But it's a good comic. I think you can still get it. Like Mile High Comics, you might still be able to get it off of them because that's where I got it from. He did it as a 1-issue thing, and I believe I was looking through the comic again today. It says, "Want to see more? Then write. Survive. P.O. Box 610, Greencastle, PA." So basically, when he originally put this out all these years ago, did it as a one-off and said, "You want to see more? Write me and let me know you want more," and he would make more. But he never did any more. But it's just that one little story. They're in bunkers. They're in sewers. You see the apocalypse. There's already gangs of warlords running around. It's good. It's a one issue. It's a really good post-apocalypse. The shit went down, and how are we surviving through it? Comic. I can't recommend this one enough. It's very good.
It is absolutely ruthless and nasty and brutal and gross. It is perhaps the grossest of any of the comics we've talked about as far as doing nasty, unpleasant stuff. I mean, the chapter called The Warlord, there's this warlord who used to be like the sheriff or something and is now running, his encampment, and they're capturing people and locking them up in the basement to eat them, to be cannibals. And when our heroes show up and liberate everybody in the basement so they can go up and kill the warlord and overthrow his regime, all they kill the warlord and all his flunkies, and everyone's like, "Woo! Soup's on! Let's eat the warlord and his flunkies." Nothing has changed.
Yeah, everybody. What's the story? Everybody eats everybody on Sunday's Planet.
Yeah,
but it's a good story. There's some again. I don't want to spoil too much of it, but there's cannibal again. We've encountered this a lot lately in some of the TV shows we talked about. For some reason, everybody goes cannibal like out of the gate. Like the gates open, the horses come out, everybody's eating everybody. It's like, dude, can't you like try to maybe scrounge for some food first, canned goods, grocery stores? Why is everybody eating everybody immediately? It's like they're not even trying,
They're not even trying.
They're not even trying to survive. It's like, okay, well, Bob, I'm gonna have to eat you. It's like, but we got all those beans. No, I gotta eat you. I mean, it's not like
the beans will go a lot further if I eat you first and don't have to split the beans with you, and that's
exactly. I'll be full on Bob, and then I don't have to use many beans. But it's like the road. It's like everything's like the road, except the road is 10 years into it, and everything's dead. All the food is gone. But these things are like, well, the apocalypse happened. Everybody get their knives and fork out and eat your neighbor. It's like
start prioritizing your housemates immediately.
I know, it's weird. I don't understand the whole cannibalism thing lately, but
it's because it's scary as all get out. It scares the shit out of people, and they don't want to have to build. They don't have to build a story like in The Road where it's 10 years after the event and we've finally worn ourselves down to this. Kind of like, I guess,
The Day.
The Day, yeah. Even The Day implied that it had been years and years and years.
Yeah, many years.
Yeah.
All I know is in this. Speaking of cannibals, there's this one scene. I don't want to. All I gotta say is there's a scene with a mother and newborn twins. Okay, that's all I
Oh,
gotta. That's all I.
yeah.
Yeah, get this book if you can. Okay, read Get Survive. Okay, you have to get it. It is again by Don Lomax, Lomax. Okay,
All right.
right now.
Lomax used to write some backup stuff for American Flag back in the day. I can remember his stuff turning up quite a bit.
And he was also known for. He also did. What was one of his things he was known for? Shit. He did something for. Was it? He did a lot of stuff for Apple Comics. He did some other. He did a lot of like war. He did a lot of war stuff. You know.
Yeah, there was a Vietnam series he did because
Vietnam Journal, Indian Country.
yeah, that's the one I remember. I got the impression he might have been a vet.
All right, now the last two series that we will talk about here is we got two of them here. I'm going to talk more about one. Scott's going to talk more about the other because it's kind of our dividing line of. Now, mind you, I do like the one that he's going to talk about, but he's the one who introduced me to it. He's the one who read it years before I did. So I'll let you start with that.
Okay, so you go ahead and pull up Joe Wright's Twilight X.
Okay, let me.
Right now, they've been collected. They've been collected into 2 volumes. Everything he's written so far has been collected into 2 volumes. After War and Before Peace are the 2 volumes, and they are expensive. They're like what, $40? I remember them being
after War. It is $49.95, and Before Peace was $49.95.
Yeah, they're very expensive, but they were absolutely worth the price of admission. I got my $100 worth of value out of them.
Oh yeah, but I think only one of them is still in print though. So I think you might only be able to get book 1. I don't think book 2 is still in print for some reason.
I have all the original comic books because I tried running them down in the early '90s, and when he was first doing it, he was first writing them. It was showing up as like the second feature in Antarctic Press's other comic book titles, and it got spread out everywhere, and the stories were sort of like not really complete. But what they did is in After War, they took all that material and they even wrote connecting material so that the disjointed stories would all come together perfectly.
Oh yeah, because there was a lot of separate little series. There's like a couple little like 5-6 issue comics of one story arc and another story arc and another story arc. It was very disjointed, but these collections, like you said, put them together, put them in order, and like you said, wrote the little bit of connecting. Like it might have been only a page or two,
yeah,
but they did a connector to make it all cohesive.
Yeah, and if you're a fan of Twilight 2000, the original 1980s vintage post-apocalyptic military, techno thriller, post-apocalyptic role-playing game, Twilight X is for you. It's centered on a sort of alternate history where the Soviet Union and the United States come to blows. The Middle East is a wasteland. There's huge irradiated areas of the Earth. Now, the Soviet Union is broken up into sort of warlords and Russian mafia that are running the place now. The United States is having a civil war against a right-wing America. The White American Nationalist Klan, the Wankers.
Always love that name.
Always love that, the Wankers. We have this American flag with a big swastika in the star field for it, and but most of the story was taking place in the Caribbean, which I found very interesting because there was nothing worth nuking down in the Caribbean, but there's the detritus of World War III all over it. When they're down in some tropical island, there's always like some plane crash in the jungle with skeletons still hanging out of an F-14 Tomcat, or old Soviet destroyers from Cuba just washing around the surf, shot full of holes, tanks half buried in the surf. So there's this environment of wreckage and ruin in the Caribbean that really, really works. And he was heavily influenced originally by a lot of manga.
Oh yeah, that is the one, not issue, but the one thing I didn't care for is, now mind you, the scenery, the vehicles, very, very good, very cinematic, great looking story book. I mean, the art is fantastic, except that his characters are manga characters.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the only issue I have with his
The
book.
the other thing I'd point out is you just said it, the word cinematic. A lot of his comics, a lot of those stories come off like storyboards. The two things that I found most storyboard was when the Marauders show up in their old UH-1 Hueys, and there's a scene where this flock of choppers come flying over the yacht, the Totoro they're on, and that scene he uses like 3 or 4 double pages.
Was that in the first book or the second book? I think it was
first
the
book.
Was it in the first book?
It's in the first book. Yeah, it's the pirates that raid that they link up with a bunch of air pirates to raid a white American nationalist clan supply ship. And that shot right there, that really sold me on the comic book. The other thing that sold me was after being beat up on by the Klan, the sort of American neo-Nazis, and dealing with gangsters and marauders and little tin pot dictators on various islands. There's that one scene where the American, something shows up that's actually American. Where you've spent the whole story just, not knowing what's going on in America and thinking that maybe it's just a nuclear wasteland. The only thing that's left of these right-wing nationalists trying to colonize the Caribbean because it's not radioactive. And then out of the blue, there's that one thing where there's contacts coming on the radar and the Nazis are trying to get their anti-aircraft up. You don't know who it is, and you turn the page, and it's this, fucking Corsair, jet fighter bomber with somebody's with the nose art is Killer Cadogan from Ren and Stimpy, written on drawn on the fucking nose of the bomber as it's letting loose its bomb load. He really did a great job of building that scene up, and then boom, you're like, oh my God, it's America! You break into tears of patriotic joy that thank God there's something left of the old Stars and Stripes, and he just did a great job with that. And
they have a lot of their aircraft. Which flipping through this year, he liked the A-10, so that's predominant in here is the A-10.
There's a lot of older aircraft I like. The idea that the U.S. Navy is using stuff they got out of mothballs, because like the Intruder, was it the A-7 Intruder and the A-6 Corsair? There's a lot of aircraft that shouldn't be in the air, but that's all we got left. We're using aircraft that's 10 years, 20 years out of date, but gee, it flies. So
that's all they got left. Well, that's like with the Warthog, the A-10. They freaking retired that thing, but then they realized was a Gulf 1. That they realized was a Gulf 2. Oh, wait! This actually is useful for air-to-ground superiority. It's
good for everything. That's what it's good for. It's fucking good for everything. You hear me, United States Air Force? You are fools if you drop the A-10. Don't do it.
Well, they did. They're barely keeping those things around. It's like they have like scrap yards of ones that are, and they're using it to keep those things running because it's a potent vehicle, and it's great. I think to me it's a post-apocalyptic plane. If you ever ask me. So.
The Army would be buying those for themselves if we could ever get past the politics of no fixed-wing aircraft for the Army.
Or if we could actually get them manufactured again. That's the problem. Is America doesn't have the infrastructure to make things anymore, unfortunately, because it's all done overseas. So that's our problem. But we won't get into that.
Not our weapon systems, but the idea that they'd retire. I mean, we haven't retired the B-52 because it frickin' works. Why are we retiring the? All right, enough politics. Enough
politics. Yes.
Or armchair general. I'd fight the war differently. Bullshit. Let's move on to Last Generation.
You would fight the war differently, but
yes, I have all kinds of ideas. I
can't find those. I was trying to find that picture, but all I know is there is an organization. One of the characters in there was an Israeli commando, and his group was called the Zealots, and they did put his unit patch logo in there. Let's get Zealots complete my mission. Antarctic Press. actually put those out as T-shirts, black T-shirt with the logo on the chest, like a real military shirt would be. And I do have one, and I wear it all the time. It's a great shirt. What's funny is one day I was at a gas station. I was in line. I was just picking up a soda or something, and it was raining. So I was in jeans. I had my Zealot shirt on. I had my Vietnam-style slant pocket BDU on. But the shirt was open. You could see the the emblem on the chest, and I had my what did I have? I had my black cap on, which was the Antarctic Outpost. My Antarctic Outpost 31 hat. So.
You're totally rocking the nerd. Okay.
I was totally. Oh yeah, I did. I had it made at one of those things in the mall where they do the stitching, and it says Antarctic U.S. Research Outpost 31 hat. But but I had all this on. I was clean shaven, just got my hair cut. So some guy he pointed at my shirt, and I was like, oh, you ex-military? He was, I guess I just had that air about me because I had the army jacket on, the shirt, the hat on, and I'm like, I didn't know how to answer the guy, because I didn't know enough to be able to bullshit my way through it. If the guy really was ex-military, I would be revealed in
because then you look like a retard.
Yeah, like a retard. I'd be revealed in a matter of a sentence, maybe two.
So what you have to do is you have to just go and be a junior grade retard and say, no, I just like dress up.
Yeah. I like playing with dollies, but I like it's cosplay. It's cosplay.
Yeah. I just have to throw out the similar story. My mom bought me a watch when I was in college. It was this when it was right after the Soviet Union crapped out.
Oh yeah.
Those Russian windable watches. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And got me this watch, and so all right, I wore this thing around. I was in school in Gainesville, and I remember being in a comic book store in Gainesville, and I'm buying something, and suddenly the guy behind the counter just goes, "What are you, some kind of communist?" And I'm handing him money for a comic book, and I'm like, What the fuck are you talking about? I was like, I'm sorry, what do you mean? It's just, your watch. What are you, some kind of communist? And I looked at it and I realized, I got this off a dead Russian major in the Khyber Pass. And I just took my comic book.
Nice.
Which all I'm doing is quoting Red Dawn.
Nice.
All I'm doing is quoting that thing about the hat,
yeah.
Red Dawn. But I just turned my back on him and walked out as quick as I could.
Nice. See, I wasn't quick enough to come up with something like that, but the guy's like, "Oh, ex-military." It's like, no, I guess I got to come up with a story about it, because. But anytime I wear that shirt, I get people looking at me because again, it looks very, like somebody who was military, police force would wear a shirt like that.
I like the patch a lot. It looks very genuine. And it's very cool if they put those out as T-shirts.
T-shirts. They're supposed to make hats eventually. I'd like to get a hat. I'd like a patch. I don't know. We'll have to see. All right, last thing we're going to talk about. One of my favorites. I love this one to death. It's a comic book put out by, again, another small independent comic book company in the mid-'80s called, it was Black Tie Studios. The Last Generation. Now, to me, The Last Generation...
Got my copies.
The first... Okay, yep, we got, here's the collected book of the first 3, and the 5 issues, the only 5 were put out. Okay, that's all that ever survived. That's all that made it. It was put together by Breyer, Faust, and Porch, or Pooch, I don't know. They're going to hate me again. Like I tell people, can't say people's names, but... first issue came out in I think May of 86 or 87. Read it when it came out in 1987. The local comic book store, because the cover had this on it. You got this bear, this wolf, and a rune sitting in the background. I'm like, okay, I'm intrigued, and I started flipping through it. It's post-apocalyptic. To me, this comic typifies it's Gamma World. This comic is Gamma World right here. You have mutated animals, you have PSHs, you have humanoids.
Do we have to define pure strain human? PSH because you threw that out like everyone's going to know what PSH is.
Well, if they don't, they shouldn't be listening to this podcast. Okay? But
fair enough.
Pure Strain Human was the regular human characters in the Gam World game. For those who don't know what that is, and yes, I'm being snarky, so whatever. But it starts off with. The bear is a shaman in his village. The village gets destroyed. He's on some kind of vision quest trying to find himself. The wolf is just a conniving thief who stole something from his village, and he's on the run. They team up. There's other mutants around. They eventually run into the pure strain human character and the mutated human. Because they're looking for something too. They all wind up being interconnected. They find underground complexes. They find a freezy. They find somebody from the past in like cryogenic chambers. There's technology. You run into other monsters. There's there's like cyborg type creatures.
I was about to say, weren't there like sort of malfunctioning cyborgs was one of the main points of opposition, were some sort of rampaging war weapons from before the fall.
Well, no, they were kind of controlled by these other folks. There's this weird little Egyptian theme in it somehow. I don't know how it all ties in because it ended in 5 issues, so I have no idea. Faust, Mitch Faust actually goes to different conventions from time to time, and I got to track him down one day. It's like, did you write the story? Can you talk to the guys? Like, can we finish the story? I want the story finished, because I loved it. It is. If you like Gamma World, this is Gamma World right here. I can't say enough about that.
It absolutely is everything Gamma World you wanted Gamma World to be.
Wanted Gamma World to be, exactly. There's weapons. There's high tech, low tech. I mean, it's a really good story. It is available. I believe you can still get them all on, again, Mile High Comics, just like Survive. I think they still probably have them in stock there. That's where I wound up getting my copies, and I eventually, because I originally only had the first 4 issues for a couple of decades. Okay, this is again, kids, this is pre-internet. Okay, you couldn't just find things on the internet. Okay, you want to go to another comic book store, you had to like drive like out of state or something.
I can remember going from one game store to another in towns in Florida to hit their used bin or their old out of print bin to find missing game materials or missing comic books, where you just had to because you call up these places, and when you call up, I always got, I don't know about you, but for me in the 80s, comic book service was 0. You called up and said, "Do you have this back issue?"
It still is.
You called and said, "You got this back issue?" And they're like, "Fuck it, come down and look." Well, what am I, your slave? And then they'd hang up on you. So all you had to do is you had to get in the car and drive.
Oh yeah, and any time I would travel to a different state, different part of the state, out of state, if I had the time and the access, I would break out the yellow pages, because again, no internet and smartphones, kids. Okay, that's only the phenomenon for the less than 10 years old kids. Okay, no internet, finding all this crap. So I would find there's some comic book stores here. Let's go find them. And I would go to these comic book stores and find shit. Like, I used to go to Tampa a lot. I'd go to Tampa for some reason a couple of times every couple of years back in the mid '90s, and we'd stay there, and I'd break out the yellow pages, find comic books in hobby stores, and go to these stores and search their shelves, their bins, and I would find out of print game materials. I found stuff to sell on eBay, stuff for my collections. But again, now everything's all on eBay. Well, it's already been sold on eBay now.
Yeah.
But now but that's where I found that there was a 5th issue of this book, and eagerly ordered it, and consumed it in a matter of minutes what it was there. So again, Last Generation, and I do have a little gem from there too, because in the back of the magazines, they advertised what was put out was called the Last Generation Portfolio 1. They put out this portfolio of these large-sized prints. This has got to be like at least 11 by 17 prints of all the main characters. This one is 97 out of 1,000 that were printed. It's all signed and everything. I always wanted this, and per chance, I created a Gamma World page on Facebook that a lot of people go to, and I administer, and I try to post shit there, just like I try to post shit on our site. But there was I've been busy, but there was a guy on the list. I posted an article I found about The Last Generation, and he mentioned that he had it. So I sent him.
That he had the portfolio.
He had the portfolio. He said, "Oh yeah, I own that." So I sent him a private message saying, "Can I make you an offer for it immediately? Can I make you an offer for it? Are you willing to sell it?" You know, he wasn't interested at the time, and I said, "Okay, fine." A couple weeks later,
so you burned down his house, got him fired. Once his divorce started, then he needed the money.
Yeah, no. I just broke down his door and took it, but. But I hit him up a couple weeks later, and I said, "Hey, just to let you know, if you will be willing to entertain an offer, here's my offer." I think I offered him like $50 or something for it. I didn't want to go too high, but I didn't want to go too low. I figured $50 for something that's 30 years old, 25 years old, out of print, with shipping, and you get on eBay. I figured it was a good deal. He wasn't interested at the time, but about a month later, he said, "Hey, you know what? I thought about it. I'm looking to clear some stuff out. I want to get these other things. I'll take your offer up." So we wound up making an arrangement. I got him some money, and he shipped it to me. And the funny thing was, he's out in Seattle, where you live, and he's somebody who knows who you are. I can't remember the guy's name, unfortunately, at this moment.
That isn't the guy Velasquez or Vesquez or
It was like Ed something or Brian something. I can't remember what his name was, but he knew who you were. I think probably from Pagan. He might have he might have been one of these people who was like, you said, "Hey, come to my house and move stuff, and I'll give you some books." And he was like one of these dudes who did that.
That's right. I do know the guy you're talking about because I've only had that happen once, where I had to shift, 3 pallets of hardback books in one afternoon, and. Yeah, a couple of guys who are fans showed up, and in exchange for an hour's worth of work, they got a $40 book out of the deal. So,
yeah,
really wasn't too bad in exchange, I guess.
Yeah,
nobody got a hernia.
Yeah, so
especially me.
Yeah, that's the key. So he did these, it's this collection of prints of the different characters. So it's one of those things I had to have. The only problem was one of them he actually had framed. So it is, and of course he didn't do it as. Something like this, if you're going to frame it, you use preservation glass, just like I did on my Gamma World poster, which is above the desk now. You use preservation glass, archival glass for something like this, because you don't want the sun to frickin' ruin it like it almost did on these. But I got my grubby paws on these prints, which made me very, very happy. So, again, Last Generation, can't talk enough about that one. Very, very Gamma World. So. Now, mind you, folks, there's a lot more post-apocalyptic comics out there than we just talked about. There's a lot of stuff out there. I've talked to some of my other friends. They know some stuff. There's probably other things I didn't even talk about. There's plenty of out there. There's plenty of zombie ones. There's plenty of, ones that are out there.
Crossed.
Yes. We were talking about that.
Right now. I hear nothing but good things about Crossed. But it's sort of a virus apocalypse, and instead of turning people into zombies, it turns people into horrible depravity machines, where it's not just that they run around and kill people, but they tear off all their clothes and bite the ends off their own penises and rub poop on their face and, have sex with fire hydrants and possibly lawnmowers. And it's just off the wall. It's Darth Ennis.
It's basically so. Well, and I said this before, so it sounds like I'm going to make some enemies here. So it sounds like Burning Man, but on a bigger scale, right?
Well, it's Burning Man with cannibalism and having sex with lawnmowers. Well, maybe that happens.
So it's cannibalism. It's a Burning Man with cannibalism. Great.
But I've heard some very good things about it. A number of friends told me that they really like it. But again, it was finding the scratch to catch up on the graphic novels. I just haven't had the time to do that. Too many other things that need to be bought and paid for right now.
Yeah, so I've heard of that too. There's a lot of stuff out there, folks. These are just some of the things that we possess, we've read, that we've cherished and came, fell in love with here. So there's a lot more out there. If you just do some searching.
And had to work to collect. That was the thing. These were things that we all had to pursue.
Yeah. We are not weak otakus. Okay?
No, we're not. I think Patton Oswalt would be proud of us.
We'd be proud of us. Yes, we had to earn our stripes. But yeah, there's a lot out there, and there's actually if you search, there's actually some web comics as well.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the one I mentioned real quick. A couple of them that I've discovered. There's one I discovered 10 years ago. I think it was like called something called like Post New Comic. It's kind of like set in like a frozen apocalyptic future. It hasn't done anything for a while.
I've seen that one. I've read it. Yes.
There's that one. There's one I discovered called The Wandering Ones. I haven't really had a chance to read it, but apparently it's out there. One of the ones that I love, it's a post-new comic. The guy puts out one page once in a blue moon. It's called Gone with the Blast Wave. I don't know if you're familiar with that one. The stuff he does, it's humorous, but it's a really good comic. And I've read a lot of the stuff the guy does, because the guy's like a graphic artist. He does stuff. And I've read a lot of his some of his blogging posts about it. He doesn't like the post-apocalyptic genre at all, and he says it. I don't like it, but he does this comic, Gone with the Blast Wave. It's simple: the Red Army, the Blue Army, and occasionally get the Yellow Army. You know, and they're fighting this eternal war in the apocalypse. And it is funny. He does some humorous things. It's a really good little comic that he does.
Very black humor.
Very black humor. But it's great, and I wish he would do it more often. He always posts like, yeah, I haven't had a chance to do anything with it. I don't care. He's very flippant about it because he doesn't like the genre, and it's a chore for him to do it. But it's so good. If he would just do more of it, I bet you he could get a following. He could do so much with it. But it's just he just does not like the genre. He doesn't.
Well, he started it off as you started off. He's going to make a parody of the post-apocalyptic genre, and then suddenly it takes off on its own merits. Whoops.
Yeah.
You know, that wasn't really the plan.
Yeah, it wasn't a plan for people to like it because I'm making fun of it because I don't like it. But it's good. Because that's some of the best. Like again, some of the best. Some of the best parodies and trying to make light of things is sometimes winds up being the best imitation of it, and it's good iteration. Like for example, it's kind of a weak example, but Weird Al Yankovic. He's a master of parody. He's a master of parodying things, and he did a song called "Dare to Be Stupid" off of one of his earlier albums in the '80s, which is a style parody of Devo, doing like Devo music. And as but a lot of people don't know that Devo is like my top.
Closest thing you have to a religion.
Religion is Devo. So again, surprise, surprise. But he did a parody of a Devo style, and Mark Mothersbaugh had an interview, and they talked about that song. He goes, "Yeah, I hate him because you know what? He does us better than we do us." Because he just so nailed the parody that it's like, yeah, it's perfect. It's totally what we're trying to do, and he did it better than we did. So there you go. So that's what the point I'm trying to make is, sometimes when people try to parody things, try to poke fun of things, they actually do a better job of the people who are actually doing the thing he's making fun of. So that's what he did there. So yeah, so there's plenty of web comics. If you search around, you could find that stuff.
All right. Well, I think we've rounded off our topic for the day. Once again, gone way over an hour because that's what we do.
Yeah, whatever. But I've completely and utterly thrown in the towel and given up on trying to keep this show down to 30 minutes or to 45 minutes. So I've just surrendered and said, you know what? That's what's going to be. Whatever. If you don't,
so I think our last word is goodbye. That'll be our time-saving measure. Will be our last word is goodbye.
Will be goodbye. But what we're going to do next time, folks, not sure yet. Me and Scott will talk during the week to see what we're going to talk about. Not sure yet. I haven't really thought that much in advance about it. And as usual, like I always tell everybody, if you like the show, share it with your friends, like the Facebook page, like it on YouTube, like the things, click on this, click on that, share it with people, follow us on Twitter. Blah. All right, just do it. All right, stop sitting on your laurels like I do, and just do it. Okay. So that's all for us this week, folks. We will see you again in 2 weeks. This is the Apocalypse Nerd, and he is Adam Scott Glancy. Goodbye.
Goodbye.